So this is exciting. The first time I've been able to make a video actually live from the cockpit. Not live, you know what I mean. So for anyone who's new here, my name is Lou. I am a digital nomad. I've been a full-time sea gypsy for 5 years now. And this YouTube channel is giving you a bit of background into why we chose this life in particular, how we created our escape plan, as we called it, how we worked for 2.5 years solidly towards that escape plan, and then how we executed it and how we now live in the Mediterranean on our boat. Incidentally, not the boat that we started with. We have upgraded to a slightly bigger boat because, as it turns out, a 10-metre boat isn't really big enough to live in long-term, full-time. So the first few videos are all about our origin story, and then I will delve more into the numbers and how I operate my business fully remotely, etc. in future episodes. But the origin story of what we do, how it started, etc. So I left you at the point where we'd got back from an amazing sailing holiday, our first experience of sailing, and my husband, who had until that point been adamant that he didn't want to go travelling, turned around and said, let's buy a boat and go sailing until the money runs out. I, on the other hand, had a long-term desire to go travelling, always had. So obviously I was going to say yes, but I'm a little bit more risk adverse than him, and I said, I don't really want the money to run out. In my head, I kind of knew that once we pulled the jump cord, as it were, and did this, that it would be almost torture if, after say 5 years, we had to come back and we had to return to normal life, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. I felt like that would probably be harder than never actually starting in the first place. So I said, yes, let's buy a boat and let's go sailing, but let's just hold off for a minute and let's come up with a way to make this more sustainable so that we can do it long term if we choose. And so that's what we did, and we came up with a 5-year plan, which should have seen us set sail in 2024, but there was a global pandemic you're probably aware of that completely changed our plans. We were doing quite well with the saving and what have you. We were in Greece. We were actually gaining our sailing qualifications as step 2 on the 5-year plan. Step 1 was go on another sailing holiday and make sure it wasn't just one fluky amazing holiday and that we did love it as much as we thought we did. Step 2 then was to book a 3rd sailing holiday, of which the first week was doing our sailing qualifications, and then the second week was a holiday. And during that first week I was on furlough at the time, as many of us were, and the furlough scheme was coming to an end, and my delightful employers decided it would be appropriate to send me an email whilst I was on holiday to let me know that because the furlough scheme was coming to an end, we were all being made redundant. I say all, our team. So I wasn't really sure how easy it would be to find another job coming back, and at the same time things kind of conspired, and we had been to see a boat, or we were going to see a boat that we kind of just wanted to get our eye in. It was a model of boat that on paper looked good, and we were really just not tire kicking, but you know, we didn't actually have any real intention of buying at that time necessarily. But the second that we stepped on board, we both just completely fell in love with her. It was like a real visceral gut reaction of, this is our boat. And I thought it was just me feeling it, but we both went and sat in the back cabin, and we were sat on the twin beds, and I said, God, this really feels like our boat. And he went, oh my God, yeah, I feel that too. So that was an unexpected spanner, and we went back and we crunched some numbers. We had originally planned to spend more on the initial boat purchase, and because she was quite an old boat and quite small, she was quite cheap. And so we did the numbers and we were kind of like, yeah, we could actually make it work. We could potentially pull the plug sooner than originally planned. Still didn't know how much sooner, but we knew that it was quite viable. So we put in an offer, and the offer was accepted, and that was that. We came back from holiday with a boat 2 years into our 5-year plan. So that changed things quite significantly. But basically our plan involved saving as much as we could, making our money work as hard as it possibly could, downsizing. We were quite rigorous really in that when it came to buying anything, we would ask ourselves, is this going to be coming on the boat with us? And if the answer was no, generally we didn't buy it because there was no point. But if it was something that would come on the boat with us, or that we would get a lot of use out of before we left, then we still went ahead and did it. We were just a bit more intentional about things. And it was never part of the plan for me to work. The idea was that we would both retire, and I have worked my entire life towards early retirement. That's the only goal I ever had in life. I always knew that I did not want to be stuck on the 9-to-5 hamster wheel until I was, pretty much ready to drop off this mortal coil and not have time to enjoy any kind of retirement. But at the same time, I'd never really had a particularly well-paying job, so it didn't feel that attainable really. And this was a way to achieve that. And the irony is that 6 months in, I hated retirement. Having wanted it my entire life, I hated it. My brain could not cope with not having anything to do, and the thought of being in a marina, like the summer had been amazing. We launched the boat early June, we moved to Greece in early May, launched the boat in early June, and so we'd had an amazing summer of swimming and chilling and enjoying ourselves and enjoying the water, and it was great. But as we were getting ready to go into the marina, the thought of kind of 6 months of not actually having any responsibilities or anything to do just was not bringing me joy. So that's when I started looking for online work opportunities, and I found a couple of bits and pieces here and there, which I'll probably talk about in a future episode. But around the November, I think it was, I just happened to ask my network of people, does anybody know a VA agency that will take me on even though I'm not in the UK? Because I was finding a lot of positions where people were saying, no, you have to be UK based. And I was really fortunate that somebody that I knew said, yeah, my best friend owns a VA agency and she used to be a nomad and she understands the lifestyle. Give her a shout. And so I did, and that led to me having a contract for a customer service type role around the November and December. And from there, she kind of spotted my aptitude for picking up technology really quickly, which I didn't even realise I had, but in hindsight, yeah, I guess I did always have that. So I was really fortunate. She took me under her wing and mentored me and turned me into a tech VA, and it was an incredibly steep learning curve, but I love it. I've loved it from not day one. Day one was tough. Day two, definitely day two. Day one I couldn't even figure out how to get into the software, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, very, very fortunate really. Great turn of events. And I worked for the agency for 3 years. And then the agency went in a slightly different direction, and I decided that was the ideal time to kind of call it quits. And from there I have only worked with private clients. I've had a couple of agencies approach me, but I'm actually quite happy working with private clients. I don't have an issue getting clients. At the moment I'm fully booked. I don't need anybody else. And when I do, I have quite a few different avenues for networking and finding clients. And actually at the moment about 50% of my work comes from referrals from other clients, so which is really good. I'm really happy with that. I'm obviously doing something right, so that's good. And I'm really fortunate that I genuinely love what I do. My only regret is that I didn't discover this earlier in life, because if I'd have been doing this for 5 years prior, we would have saved an absolute fortune while still in the UK. If I'd have realised I'd have been doing this all through furlough and all through the pandemic, and added quite a lot to our savings pot, but I didn't, and that's that. But I wouldn't change a thing, really. I'm very fortunate. We're very fortunate. And so yeah, that's kind of where we went, how it all happened. Not quite as planned, but I don't think I'd have it any other way. So that is effectively, in the last 3 videos, I have covered our origin story a bit. Not in a huge amount of detail, but you know, enough. If you want more detail, you're going to have to read the book when it's written, because that goes into a lot more detail, obviously. And so my next videos are going to be just a little bit about our day-to-day life, the challenges that we face, the highs, the lows, everything in between. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the financial planning that we did, how we audited our finances, how we maximised our income and the money that we had, making it work for us a bit harder. All the little things that we did that compounded to make a big difference and give us a decent savings pot, and some of the good fortune that we've had along the way as well. So that's that, really. And if there's anything in particular that you want me to cover, or that you've got any burning questions about, let me know in the comments, or find me on Facebook or my website and send me a message. I'm always open to communicating with people, and I hope that you're enjoying my content, and I will look forward to creating more videos for you.